Hi, welcome to The Gavel. I'm Terry Ikumi. The week under review was full of activities in the National Assembly. We'll have all the details within the next 30 minutes, beginning with the governorship elections in Kogi and Bayelsa State on the 16th of November, not forgetting the senatorial election for Kogi West. While the National Assembly reacted to the violence that occurred during those elections, almost 2 weeks after. Now, while the Senate is planning to introduce a bill to address election and post-election violence in the country, believing it will prescribe severe punishments for perpetrators of violence during any election in the country, the House of Representatives resolved to investigate the circumstances surrounding the violence during the elections, despite the deployment of over 65,000 policemen to both states. Take a listen.
Amendment as moved by the Speaker, seconded by...
In the House of Representatives, raised as a matter of urgent public importance, the Deputy Minority Leader expressed worry that despite the deployment of over 65,000 policemen for the elections in Kogi and Bayelsa states, there were significant cases of violence leading to deaths. While the police says it has arrested 6 suspects in the case of the murder of the PDP women leader in Kogi State, Salome Abu, the lawmakers believe an investigation by the House is still necessary.
The House resolves to constitute a joint committee to investigate the pre- and post-election security breaches in Kogi and Bayelsa, including the alleged presence of fake police officers and unmitigated violence during the election, and recommend ways to forestall such reoccurrence.
I want to say that if we really mean well, we have to go back, maybe retrace the history and look at what should be done. I remember the governor of Rivers State was putting up like a kind of what the security said militia. My brother Chinda here was the one who came to the floor of the House to protect that wasn't a militia. They were putting a front, like a kind of neighborhood policing. Mr. Speaker, why are we being dishonest in terms of what we argue and what we say? I condemn what has happened, if at all it happened, but I think we should be fair to allow a good reasoning, a good investigation from the police first, so that we can get to the root of the matter. For now, I think some people want to justify why they must go to court, so that they will go to court and say this election was full of this, and it was certified by the National Assembly. I will not be part of those to certify what they are alleging for now.
A minute of silence was observed for those who lost their lives during the election, as the Speaker charged the committee to make no reference to any political party in its report.
Now, honorable colleagues, in the spirit of fairness, so that no side, no party is prejudiced by this. I don't even know if this motion will carry. I have no idea. But peradventure, in the event that it carries, there shall be no reference to any political party in the report, whether PDP is guilty, whether APC is guilty, whether SDP is guilty. There shall be just the facts of what happened without reference to any political party, so that such is not used against whether it's PDP or APC in court, and we allow the courts to do their work. So, if the report contains reference to any party, that report will not be considered on the floor of this House.
Page 430.
The matter was also raised in the Senate.
The recent cannibalistic action of armed thuggeries carrying out carnage on each other before, during, and after the elections in Bayelsa and Kogi states in the just concluded election. This has called for the question, which way are we going as a country? Believes that the resultant effect of the electoral mayhem will reduce the credibility of our electoral process and deepen hatred, as well as widen the gap of our unity. Believes further that the country's electoral management body is not strong enough to withstand the pressure exerted by the political system and the electoral misconduct that accompany it, continue to strengthen the deepening of the democratization process. This negative effect of electoral violence in the country will continue to reduce the citizens' confidence in the democratic process, as well as heighten the fears of possible democratic collapse. Agrees that to continue to exist as one united nation and deepen our democratic gains, it has become imperative that every Nigeria must be involved in curbing the excesses of the high pace of electoral violence in the country.
Political analysts and security experts have warned of dire consequences if the growing violence experienced before, during and after elections is not checked. This perhaps informed the position of the majority leader when he proposed a bill to check election violence.
We join our friends to condemn in no uncertain terms this resort to violence that we have seen. I've listened very carefully to what he has said. I don't agree with the last part. The last part where he says, let's just leave the National Orientation Agency and INEC to do something. That is not the point. The point is that people have been known and seen to perpetuate violence. Nothing has been done to them. And once nothing is done to somebody, once nobody pays a price for criminality of this nature, it only breeds further violence. And so, what we should also add there is that the law enforcement agencies must be up to task.
I think it is important if the minority leader and myself can come up with a bipartisan bill to look at the punishment for electoral violence and see how we can raise a law in this particular chamber and also in the Federal House of Representatives to really take due note of this process and prescribe a legal regime that's going to be able to address it. Electoral violence knows no partisanship. Let's be very, very clear about it. All the politicians on all sides are guilty. Violence did not start when APC came to power. Violence started, as I said, from the beginning, particularly it got bad from the beginning of our democratic journey from 1999. Of course, there were some pockets of violence in the previous democratic experiences, but they have not been as bad and terrible as they are today.
Well, the House will be meeting with the police for further investigation, and we'll see how far the Senate will go with the proposal of the majority leader for a bill to check election violence. Now, President Muhammadu Buhari on Thursday forwarded a request to the Senate and House of Representatives to reconsider and approve the federal government's 2016 to 2018 external borrowing plan. The loan, according to the president, is to execute key infrastructural projects across the country. He had sent the same request to the 8th Senate in 2016, requesting for about $30 billion, but it was rejected as majority voted against the request when it was brought for consideration. Now, another issue that was raised within the week under review is policemen dressed in mufti patrolling the highways in unmarked vehicles. The House of Representatives Committee on Police will be meeting with the police force to investigate why that is so and to possibly correct it.
Those against you say nay.
The final plenary of the week in the House of Representatives began with letters of request from President Muhammadu Buhari sent to both chambers of the National Assembly. One of the letters was for the review and approval of the 2016 to 2018 external borrowing plan, while the other was for the amendment to a section of the Companies and Allied Matters Act, CAMA, passed by the 8th Assembly.
While I had transmitted the 2016 to 2018 external borrowing plan to the 8th National Assembly in September 2016, this plan was not approved in its entirety by the legislature. The outstanding projects in the plan that were not approved by the legislature are nevertheless critical to the delivery of the government's policies and programs relating to power, mining, roads, agriculture, health, water, and educational sectors. The House of Representatives may wish to note that in this bill, Section 26, subsection 5 of the Extant Companies and Allied Matters Act has been amended to preserve, to preserve the powers of the Attorney General of the Federation to approve the registration of companies limited by guarantee, and 2, reflect the ease of doing business principles in Executive Order Number 1 of 2017.
Afterwards, a number of matters of urgent public importance were raised, one of which urged the federal government to rescind its decision to employ 5,000 instead of the initially proposed 10,000 personnel into the Nigeria Security and Civil Defense Corps, NSCDC.
3 million people apply in only 10,000. And now budget office, they plan to reduce it to 5,000. So, Mr. Speaker, what kind of planning is this? Bad planning. Wow. Seriously, Mr. Speaker, if we consider to the situation, the major promise we make during our campaign, which made our teaming youth to support us, is employment. So instead, we are expecting civil defense to recruit 50,000. Next year, 30,000. Over a year, 20,000. So our people will get jobs. But unfortunately, Mr. Speaker, instead of 10,000, 3 million people apply. As they open the port, if notice they close, 10 million will apply. And we are expecting 10,000. And the budget office is supposed to plan to make it 15,000 so that we will be proud. So that our team youth that are going and suffering on the street will get a job to do.
Yeah, I agree with you.
A motion on the need to ensure that policemen on highway patrol are properly kitted and their cars clearly marked was also raised.
Policemen on highway patrol appear differently from one checkpoint to another, as some do not wear any means of identification such as name tags, uniforms, berets, boots, etc., which makes it difficult for citizens to identify them, thereby on occasions mistaking them for armed robbers. Concerned that some of the vehicles used by the policemen on highway patrols are neither properly painted in Nigerian police colors, nor are they properly numbered.
Section 26, subsection 5.
President of the Senate, Ahmed Lawan, directed the Committee on Niger Delta to work with the board approved by the Senate when considering the budget of the Niger Delta Development Commission. By this directive, the Senate Committee on Niger Delta is to ignore the interim committee inaugurated by the Minister of Niger Delta Affairs, Godswill Akpabio. Senator Lawan gave the directive following the request of President Muhammadu Buhari to the Senate for the consideration and approval of the Niger Delta budget for 2020. The committee is expected to report back in 2 weeks. Meanwhile, the board approved by the Senate is yet to be inaugurated by President Muhammadu Buhari.
In drawing a road, another map.
On Wednesday, the minority leader of the House of Representatives, delegated by the Speaker, led the debate and moved a motion for the second reading of a bill which seeks to ensure that 40% of the nation's annual budget is allocated to capital projects.
What this bill is trying to do is to correct that abnormalities, where in a situation capital projects are kind of sidelined or neglected.
The bill, which was sponsored by the Speaker of the House, targets increase in GDP, stimulation of the economy, among others. The Speaker believes that the numerous abandoned projects in the country could be blamed on the poor allocation to capital projects over the years.
There's no way I know how you can send in such sums for budget and expect that the projects will be completed. Let's remember that it's a 10-year, almost like an experimental thing. Subject to review after 10 years.
The bulk of the country's budget in the years past have been largely consumed by recurrent expenditure and debt servicing, which do not contribute to the economic growth of any nation. However, while the lawmakers call for increased capital expenditure, it is also important to harp on the need for revenue generation to fund the budget, and also cutting down the cost of governance in all aspects, which makes up the recurrent expenditure in the annual budget. Welcome back to the gavel. Let's take you through some of the motions raised in both chambers of the National Assembly.
Robert.
The Senate passed
Ajayi,
through second reading a bill to provide for the establishment of the Federal College of Education, Giwa, Kaduna State. The bill was sponsored by Senator Sani Uba.
The proposed Federal College of Education, Giwa, Kaduna State, will make a vital contribution in this regard. Some of the objectives of the college as outlined in the bill are as follows. A. to bring quality change in education by focusing on teacher education through teaching and learning innovations. B, to develop and offer academic and professional programs leading to the award of certificates, first degrees, postgraduate research, diploma and higher degrees with emphasis on planning, developmental and adaptive skills in education, technology, applied science, agriculture, commerce, arts, social science, humanities, management, and allied professional disciplines.
Meanwhile, in the House of Representatives, the attention of lawmakers was drawn to a fire incident at Oritakberi Market, Ibadan, Oyo State, caused by a falling petrol tanker. The mover of the motion, Representative Ajibola Morena, sought the quick intervention of the National Emergency Management Agency for distribution of relief materials to victims.
The House notes that on 14th June 2019, fire raged down the Oritakberi Market in Ibadan, Oyo State, destroying goods worth millions of naira. The House also notes that a similar incident occurred a couple of weeks ago at Onipepeye Bridge along Lagos-Ibadan Expressway, where some people were burnt to death when a truck conveying 33,000 liters of premium motor spirit ran into some vehicles and exploded, leaving a trail of destruction. The House resolves: 1, to observe a minute silence in honor of the deceased. 2, to urge the National Emergency Management Agency, NEMA, to provide relief materials for the affected people in order to ease their pains.
Also, the House of Representatives condemned what it described as illegal disposal and burning of seized barges, boats and vehicles in the Niger Delta region, following a motion by Representative Francis Waive. He also accused the military of illegal disposal of seized crude oil into the river and burning of the bunkering materials, leading to explosion, air and water pollution.
The House notes that the law enforcement agents are empowered under Nigerian laws to arrest any person and seize every instrument used for illegal bunkering, including the stolen oil. The House notes that the laws do not mandate the security personnel or make any provision whatsoever on how the seized items should be disposed of. Again, the House notes that there have been a series of complaints from the Niger Delta region of illegal disposal of seized crude oil by military personnel into the river and the burning of bunkering materials leading to explosion, air and water pollution.
Another motion on the need to investigate the collapse of the Delta Steel Company was also raised. Representative Benny Bakba urged the House to mandate its committees on steel and works to conduct investigation into the collapse of the company and make recommendations on measures to ensure its resuscitation within the shortest possible time.
Consider that despite the promise by Premium Steel, the new company that have acquired it, even when they did not bid for it and bought it lesser, 5 billion, more than the highest bidder, promised to revive the DS in a short time. Operations at the plant are yet to begin after 2 years, after the purchase of the company, leaving the whole complex deserted, except for gun 30 security men who guard the premises.
Also, the House of Representatives, like the Senate, passed the Finance Bill 2019 submitted by President Muhammadu Buhari. Apart from the worries expressed by a cross-section of Nigerians concerning the increase in value-added tax on specific goods and services from 5 to 7.5%, the bill also amends the tax provision of the Customs and Excise Tariff Act to encourage local manufacturers. It introduces tax incentives for investment in infrastructure, capital markets, and supports small businesses. The finance bill will reform the current tax regime by amending 7 acts, namely the Petroleum Profit Tax Act, Customs and Excise Tax Act, Company Income Tax Act, Personal Income Tax Act, Value Added Tax Act, Stamp Duties Tax Act, and Capital Gains Act. The responsibilities of lawmakers extend beyond the chambers. They are also expected to pay close attention to ministries, departments, agencies, and parastatals and how they operate. This is referred to as oversight function. Now let's see how they did that within the week under review and also some committee meetings.
The House of Representatives Committee on Immigration, as part of its oversight functions, paid a visit to the Controller General of the Nigerian Immigration Service, where the issue of expatriates taking over Nigerian jobs and the requirement of work permit for them to operate was discussed.
I am committed to make sure that we protect the labor of Nigeria. We don't allow expatriates to take over our jobs. I am 100% committed to work with you, 100%. And I'm telling you, anything you see, tell us. We will act on it. It's better because you don't have the arms to work. The last assembly was even arresting expatriates. Say, you can't arrest expatriates. You're a member of National Assembly. They arrest expatriates. They interview them, keep them. They say they have detained them. I say you can't detain.
Invited stakeholders.
The House of Representatives organized a 3-day investigative hearing to come up with a solution to the problem of SIM swap fraud and also help develop a framework that would help government efficiently address cybercrimes in all its dimensions.
Unless something serious is done about this, nobody will take his money to the bank. I tell you, nobody. And the banking industry will collapse. Imagine a situation where you are just seated, somebody will just, you see an alert wiping out your account completely.
Security experts are worried that SIM swap fraud also has dangerous security implications.
If Nigeria is to operate a cashless system, we should make it foolproof. We should not subject people to sufferance over their hard-earned money. Some of the processes used by mobile operators are weak and leave customers open to SIM swap attacks.
These criminals normally carry out SIM swap process on a weekend. Either Thursday or Friday, such that by 8 hours of Saturday, they should have gained access to the victim account and transfer their hard-earned income to different bank accounts, knowing fully well that banks are closed on weekend.
They recommend solutions to deal with this problem.
Establish a synchronized data bank station between NSCDC and other stakeholders, e.g. banks and NCC, whereby an alert on SIM swap in progress can be checkmated promptly.
The Central Bank of Nigeria introduced a cashless policy, which is an initiative to reduce the amount of fiscal cash in circulation, thereby encouraging the use of electronic platforms for settlement of payments for goods and services. The policy, which intends to improve the effectiveness of monetary policy in managing inflation and driving economic growth, prescribes cash handling charges on daily withdrawals above 500,000 for individuals and 3 million for corporate bodies. But this policy comes with its challenges, one of which is the problem of SIM swap fraud, which occurs when a fraudster steals a person's personal information, mainly from the internet, and uses it to request for a new SIM card from that person's network provider, effectively cloning that person. The fraudster is then able to retrieve the victim's online banking information.
National Assembly.
President of the Senate, Ahmed Lawan, has declared that the 9th National Assembly is working to ensure that programs are implemented in conformity with laws and resolutions passed by it. Senator Lawan, who stated this during the 2019 Legislative Conference, says beginning from January 2020, Senate committees will be making available weekly publications of motions and laws passed, as well as compliance reports to the public. In his keynote address, the Director General of the Nigerian Institute of Advanced Legal Studies, Professor Mohammed Ladan, said the legislature must satisfy certain conditions to effectively deploy its oversight powers.
Practically everywhere in the world, especially where you have an institutionalized democratic governance, oversight out of this form is generally seen as arguably the most crucial of all the basic functions of the legislature in any democracy. Because it is the function of a watchdog, which perhaps is more important for a parliament or for a national assembly than that of lawmaking.
Earlier, the convener of the conference, Mr. Sonny Osiebe, says it is imperative to strengthen the legislative processes and procedures to further empower the legislature to carry out its core duty of oversight.
Now, in Nigeria, we have a problem. Now, is the legislature part of the problem? The answer is yes. Now, where lies the problem in the legislature? It's in the power of oversight. So we need to strengthen the oversight function of the legislature so that at the end of the day, good governance, transparency, and accountability will be a thing of the past.
Well, that's it on The Gavel. Thank you for watching. Send your feedback to thegavel@channelstv.com. I'm Terry Ikumi. Goodbye.